Sponsored by Experience Imagination. Boys action anime, or shonen anime, has never been more popular, but at the same time, it's getting kind of dark, kind of scary, kind of complicated, and very gory. But I think these are all good things. But is this all still for kids? Well, it kind of is, and I think there are 3 things we should do about it. Hey there, welcome back to Surviving Animation, your guide to making it in the business of cartoons. My name's Eric Calderon. Today we're talking about shonen anime, how it's gotten a lot darker, a lot more violent, a lot more complicated, but why audiences are still really going for it, and what us non-Japanese animation producers and people in the animation industry should do about this growing, a little bit disturbing trend. Before I dive in, I'd like to thank my sponsor, Falcons Creative Group, and their award-winning podcast, Experience Imagination, a themed entertainment podcast. It's actually shot and edited and recorded right here in this room, and because of the facility being so close by and of my partnership with them, I can create a lot more videos, do a lot more content, have a lot more conversations with you out there who have been kind enough to watch this channel. All right, let's dive right back into the subject of shonen anime and why I think it's scary good. I think the first step in understanding how this entire industry trend is happening is making sure that you understand the word shonen. So give me a few minutes to tell you exactly what shonen means. Shonen, which means young boy in Japanese, refers to basically cartoons and comics that are geared towards the young boy action audience. Roughly, you could say it's targeted at boys 9 to 15 or 9 to 16 by some metrics, and as high as like 12 to 18 by other metrics. But it would really be a mistake to consider this a demographic. It's actually much more than just a target audience of people. Shonen is really a psychographic state of mind. When I say shonen or people talk about shonen, what we're really saying is I am in the mood to watch something that feels like a young boy's action story. And because of that wider definition, a much larger audience comes into shonen. Now, once you understand that this is a state of mind, you have to understand that shonen itself has a few tropes, and these tropes are actually expected in everything that is under the category of shonen. And without these tropes, it kind of ceases to become shonen, which in a way is a very Japanese idea. So there's all this structure, all this form, all these things that have to be checked off in order for something to be called a shonen, and let me go through them right now. There are basically 4 main points to make something a shonen, and they go something like this. First of all, it has to involve a young boy hero that has, as part of his journey, a constant flow of physical challenges. And these physical challenges have to become more and more complicated, more and more strenuous, more and more difficult, and in many cases, and actually importantly, involve a lot of failure in order to reach a higher plateau of victory. So the first requirement for shonen is physical combat. The second point about shonen that's really important to the entire genre is that there has to be a stated theme of the main character. So in a very simple way, a lot of times the main character will just say it out loud and say it often so that the viewers and the audience and the readers can fully understand what the goal of the main character is. Once this is established, that goal acts as kind of a spine for the entire story that could be as short as a single season run or as long as 1,000 episodes. The third point that makes something a shonen is actually the contradictory nature of the main character, which gets in the way of that character trying to reach their stated goal that involves physical challenges. So, for example, in the anime Haikyuu, the main character is actually very short. He's one of the shortest people in his school, but his main goal is to become the volleyball team's best spiker, something you would normally associate being for someone very tall. So again, that shonen trope of the main character with their goal, with the physical combat or physical exertion, has to have built into its structure the actual opposite, the sometimes comedic or ironic or sad opposite reason that it seems like the character can never reach that goal. All right, the fourth and last aspect that makes any type of comic or cartoon in Japan a shonen is actually the recurring themes. So even though the main character has their singular theme that's stated out loud, usually the rest of the show is based on pretty familiar ideas like perseverance or friendship or the warrior spirit or courage or something like that. So once the audience understands the full theme underneath, then all the minor characters, all the villains, all the locations can reflect that minor goal, of which the main character's singular goal all work in perfect harmony together. Okay, I could probably spend an entire video or an extended podcast talking about shonen. It's a very complicated genre in a sense, even though the definition is simple. There's all these subgenres, there's all these spin-offs, there's all these evolutions of the genre as it started in the 30s and 40s, going up to today. And a lot of people can point to different eras of how shonen changed. But I think for the purpose of this video, that's kind of the need to know about shonen. So let's move right now more directly into where shonen is at today, why it's so scary good, and what we should do about it. Okay, so now that we understand shonen, the dark turn that's happening is really pretty significant. And I think anyone who's in the anime industry or anime industry adjacent, whether it's in the license and merchandising part, or it's in translation for comics, or even in cosplay and just attending conventions, we all can see that it's getting very, very dark. So if you look at shows like Jujutsu Kaisen or Demon Slayer or Kaiju number 8 or Chainsaw Man, which is by far the most violent shonen anime I've seen in my entire career. We're seeing all these themes that before now seemed almost off limits to, the young boy genre. We're seeing things like demons and possessions and violent swordplay, and we see dismemberment and decapitation and zombification and sometimes just straight up murder. So all of this is not only talked about out loud, it's actually depicted in exquisite, specific detail. These things are not done off screen. They're done right there for the main camera to see, for audiences to bear. And it's just the way it is. I've spent a lot of time thinking, why is this happening? Is childhood getting shorter? Are creators just getting more and more into that thing? Is there something happening out there in the culture that's causing Japanese creators to create more dark shonen anime or shonen manga? And I realized it's not really important to figure out why at this point. I mean, if you have an opinion about this, please let me know in the comments. I'm actually really curious about why people think shonen anime and shonen manga has gotten dark. But for the purposes of where we're going to go with this video and what I want to talk about next, I think it's just important to note that it exists, and it exists in large numbers. Actually, in January, a publication called Polygon did a really wonderful article, which I'll link below, and they actually had 4,000 respondents talk about their behaviors and entertainment. And I was shocked to read that 42% of the people of this 4,000 person survey said they watch anime on a weekly basis. And then as you went from the Gen Zs to millennials, that number went from 42% down to 25%, and then, 12% for Gen Xers and 3% for boomers. So that was kind of expected. But just the amount of people, the amount of young people coming into anime, specifically to the shonen genre, was kind of shocking. Additionally, the COO of Crunchyroll, which of course you have to take with a little grain of salt because Crunchyroll is actually an anime distributor, their COO actually said that anime in general is attracting the younger audiences that cable television, traditional TV, and even streamers are having a really hard time getting, and that's the Gen Z and sometimes even Gen Alpha audience. And what they've discovered in their own research is that Gen Alpha and even younger is over-indexing and watching anime, and a lot of these people are coming through the shonen genre. Now, one more thing I have to mention before I go into the what Americans and what non-Japanese animation industry professionals should do about the shonen industry is just to state, as a fan, as a professional, as a film lover, as an animation lover, shonen anime is just awesome these days. I mean, it is so good. I mean, the quality of the production, the quality of the direction, the character design, the voice acting, the effects, the total picture, and it's just never been at such a high level before. And it's incredible to watch shonen anime compete with itself, trying to one up itself all the time. And if you think about the hours and hours and dozens of episodes and multiple TV series, when I really think about it from an animation industry perspective, outside of Japan, there's just no competition, in the large amount. Of course, you have your exceptions, you have your shows like Blue-Eyed Samurai, or you have Arcane, which just are a level of production quality, feature film and beyond. But if you think about the quantity of stuff that's coming out there, no one by far can compete with Japan and compete with the number of episodes and amount of high quality dark shonen anime that's coming out. So what should we do about as non-Japanese producers? Well, I have three basic ideas. One kind of coincides and relates to the other two, but let me go through it. So first of all, we got to study it. I mean, if you're serious about being really on the cutting edge of trying to bring entertainment to a younger generation, whether that be an animated movie, an animated series, or a comic book, or a short, you have to recognize that shonen anime, this dark new version of shonen anime, is the thing that kids are watching probably more than anything else when it comes to linear media. So, you know, get that Crunchyroll account, get that Netflix account, get that Hulu account, and really start to track what you think are some of the best shows out there in this genre and, do your own takeaways. I mean, personally, I really love the show Kaiju Number 8. I think it was a really fantastic short run series. It started off very comedic, but by the end, it actually got very dark and very violent. And I was really invested in that story and where it went. But as an industry analyst, I stepped back and I said, well, what makes Kaiju Number 8 really good is that it's the classic trope of half human, half other. That goes right back to the Hulk. That goes right back to Ben 10. That goes to Mei Lee and turning red, going from a young girl to a panda. Just that classic mythological trope still carries in this Kaiju Number 8. Now, what Kaiju Number 8 does, and naming its main character Kafka, by the way, which is a direct reference to Franz Kafka and his short story, The Metamorphosis, where like a guy wakes up and turns into a cockroach, is it takes the one plus other trope and puts it in this kind of gamified fighting giant monster, militaristic, epic story. And then it lands in the center. The funny trope, which is the shonen shift, is the character is considered old, and old is 32, which made me very sad. But in this world view, the oldest character wants to be the best fighter of kaiju, so he applies at age 32, even though he's got only 1 year left, and everyone else is younger than him, 18, 19, 20, 21. And when they're fighting these giant monsters, it turns, to everyone's surprise, that the main character can turn himself into one of the legendary Kaiju Number 8s, and he, starts to fight all these bad guys. So I don't want to spoil too much more, but I really felt comforted that the type of story they were telling was familiar to me, was familiar to someone who could create and write and find kind of a universal theme, but it was done in this great methodology of anime. So anyway, that was my takeaway from it. So anyway, point number one, study the art form, study the trend. That's the only way you're going to figure out how to deal with it. All right, point number two. If you believe that shonen anime in its current form is really the voice of the generation, how kids are speaking, flow with it. I think flow with it in a way that means look at your creative materials, look at what you're creating today, look at the show you're trying to come up with. Does it have some of the hints of that shonen anime structure? Does it speak to an audience who is already fascinated with Demon Slayer? Does it address some of the darkness that kids maybe are craving in their current content right now? Maybe your stuff is too black and white. Maybe it's too simple. Maybe it requires a little bit of shocking element, which, especially as a Western producer, we might find a little controversial for younger children. But hey, if they're watching this and we feel this is authentic to our work, adding in some of what we've learned from shonen anime is how I would say flow with it. Okay, my third option of what to do about the trend of dark shonen anime is just go the opposite way. And I say, if you're not going to do something that's dark and shonen anime, or you really reject what a lot of this is bringing to kids, turn the other way with vigor. In other words, if the world is watching all of something over here, give them something over there. So maybe your show or maybe your concept should be lighter, happier, full of a lot more hopeful themes, be a lot more of a simple idea of what is good and what is bad. Maybe use brighter colors and simple shapes. Maybe go for a classic comedy. Whatever it is, make a mindful effort to not be shonen anime in order to make your material stick out in a world that might actually start to be crowded with shonen anime. All right, that's it. What do you think about the current trend of dark shonen anime? Is it as scary good as I think it is, or do you like it, or do you hate it? What shows do you watch? What things are you into? What do you think us foreign producers should do about it? I can't wait to hear what you say in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.